Chapter 1. Soliloquy on Death. Death, said DCI Tillotson, is not so bad when you come to think about it. Life is full of worries. What if I lose my job? What if I get some horrible illness? What if my wife runs off with the milkman? Then a peaceful death would come as a blessed release. Those things will never bother you again. And with this solemn pronouncement, old Ben drained his pint of Harvey's and looked reflective. He was reflecting on when I was going to buy him another one. I obliged. What you don't want, he added, is for a hand to reach out from the grave and take you by the throat and throttle you. Metaphorically? Micah asked. Throttle you metaphorically, but fatally nonetheless. And with that, DCI Tillotson went off to utilise the facilities. Inspector Tillotson was a good policeman, as he would be the first to tell you. However, he had something of a weak bladder these days. He was close to retirement. We were sitting in the garden of the Park View on a lovely sunny day. The park in question is actually the old Durrington Wreck, but you could hardly call a pub the Old Wreck. The food didn't have the same range as the John Selden, but it was excellent nonetheless. Once upon a time, the pub really was a run-down, dilapidated old wreck called the Lamb. It was supposedly owned by a shepherd in antiquity, obviously an ex-shepherd, since he ran a pub, and it looked as if it had not had any improvements since. The paintwork, even the brickwork, had a sad look to it. The Park View, under new ownership, has been an improvement all round. Of course, people miss the old Lamb, but really it had needed the TLC that the Park View was getting. Nostalgia isn't what it used to be. The only blot on this landscape was the Brobdingnagian TV screen in the garden, but mercifully this was off at the time. I wonder why old Ben wants to drink with us, Micah speculated, not for the first time. He hates lefties and left-footers as a rule, but makes an exception of us. His opinion of private detectives, she added, is littered with his favourite adjective. For your information, I have removed this adjective from old Ben's narrative. He does use it a lot. It's a police thing. I thought about this. It could be that his colleagues, including the Chief Constable, are all so much younger than he is, and we could not be accused of that. He told me the Chief had called him in to suggest he comes back as a volunteer after he retires. Working for no pay did not appeal. He told her very politely. Micah looked at me. In his version, anyway, I amended. And there are the free drinks, said Micah, thinking of our bank balance. When he came back, he scowled at our bottle of Casillero del Diablo as if it were a foreign body, which I suppose it is. He would never drink anything quite so poncy as Cabernet Sauvignon. He had been known to break that rule at times, too. Well, you two seem to have enough to be going on with. I'll just get myself a pint then. He duly did, and then continued his narrative about death. Of course, you lot expect to get into heaven, but I'll tell you what Les Dawson said about that. You'll find Buddha, and he'll say, I was right, you were wrong, go back as a worm, Micah volunteered. He repeated the line as if Micah had not said anything, and we laughed politely. Eventually, with old Ben it is always eventually these days, he got to the point. Bell Cottage is in Salvington, bit posh for the likes of us. Old James Masterson lived there alone after the death, the certified death, I might add, of his wife, Elizabeth, K.A. Betty Masterson, née Betty Boop, and that was a joke. Her surname was really Johannes. She couldn't possibly have murdered him. He had a dicky ticker and it just gave up the ghost. Now, ghosts don't exist. Well, they don't exist in real life, that is. They exist in dreams and reveries. But it's quite unusual for one of them to kill anyone. However, and here he paused for another swig of Harvey's, sure as I'm sitting here, Betty Masterson murdered her widowed husband. "And you can't investigate this?" Micah asked innocently. "We are the Sussex Constabulary, not Ghostbusters. The death was recorded as natural causes, so we can't, but—" He left it at that and went back to soliloquising about the afterlife. We had a couple of exceptionally boring and, for us, exceptionally lucrative insurance cases we were investigating. For the Durrington Detective Agency, this was a full caseload. "Well, we could put old Ben's case on the back burner," Micah muttered. As if on cue, the food arrived, and we had other things to think about. "Wordle is getting ridiculous with its foreign words and Americanisms," I said, after we'd done justice to the burgers and ordered a second bottle, and of course a pint of Harvey's. It was the weekend, after all. "Presumably Americanisms are foreign words," Ben said somewhat surprisingly. Apparently the game had reached Sussex police. As if reading my mind, old Ben said, "The young whippersnappers are all full of the stupid game, so I had to give it a go." "And this morning? Oh, for heaven's sake, it was ridiculous. I ask you, schlepp, for crying out loud." And we left it at that.